welcome to Elder Health Connection, a podcast where I gather innovators in elder healthcare to discuss their unique perspectives on caregiving and care receiving. My name is Caroline Morris, and I use my combined experience in biochemistry, physical therapy, health coaching, and growing up next door to my grandparents to dig deep into the complexities of aging and then draw out practical solutions that can fit into your life. I record this show from my home in Alexandria, Virginia, sometimes with the input from my dogs, Benny and Barry. Thank you for joining us today. Today we get to hear from Nicole Reynolds of Smooth Moves Therapy and Optimal Daily Living Wellness. She is an occupational therapist with a master's degree in science who understands total well-being through mind, body, and spirit. She believes that looking at our whole body through mindset, lifestyle, movement, nutrition, and a positive outlook are the keys to optimizing health. She has worked in a multitude of settings, finding her passion working with those with Parkinson's disease. Nicole and I had a great conversation about Parkinson's disease and all of the aspects that can affect it and lead to improved function. I can't wait for you all to hear more from Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so excited to talk with you today. I think we have a lot in common with our philosophy of care, of moving towards a more wellness, all-encompassing model, and you are doing it in the field of Parkinson's. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Movement disorders, Parkinson's, and just chronic conditions. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you give us a little bit of an overview of what Parkinson's disease is?
Yeah, Parkinson's disease is actually the second most common neurological disease behind dementia. So it's becoming more and more prevalent in society today. And it's a neurological motor disease. It's chronic. It does not go away. Unfortunately, there's no cure at this time, but it's mostly pretty much just a neurological disease, motor, and it affects the motor functions. So the people with Parkinson's usually, move slower, or they have a freezing of gait. They become stiff, rigid. The muscles just aren't as limber and loose, I guess, as they used to be, without going down too much of a rabbit hole. But it affects the dopamine levels in the brain, and that is replaced through medication. And the positive part of Parkinson's is that it is regulated through medication very well. So it's not, I've got Parkinson's and this is the end and I'm done and my life's over. It's actually finding a movement disorder specialist will help you to regulate the motor symptoms that come along with Parkinson's. And a lot of people have had it for, 20, 30 years and they're still okay. You have to just be up on it and go to your neurologist and get the medication changes. But it's completely motor. And just because you have a diagnosis of Parkinson's doesn't mean, your life's over.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have got your start with Parkinson's disease as an occupational therapist. Can you tell us a little bit about that work and how that would help this disease in addition to the medical management?
So I've been an occupational therapist for 10 years now. So I would say about 5 years into being an OT is when I developed the need to be, I would say, a Parkinson's specialist in the therapy world. My grandmother and her brother actually have been diagnosed with Parkinson's. So I had someone very close to me with it, and I watched the disease kind of deteriorate them as far as they were moving slower, their posture went, all these things that were happening. And I just watched it before my eyes and I said, there's got to be something else. So that's when I kind of developed that niche for the Parkinson's world, I guess. So what occupational therapy does with those with Parkinson's is we really look at the functional skills, activities of daily living, your function in your day-to-day life, dressing, going to the bathroom, getting in and out of bed, preparing a meal if that's something you need to do, just the functional things like that, getting in and out of the shower, walking to your mailbox to get your mail, literally getting in and out of the car. I mean, the list is endless. And also we really look at the fine motor And the hands, handwriting, eating, self-feeding is huge with the activities of daily living. Yeah, so that's what occupational therapy does in a nutshell. We tie everything to function, basically.
Yeah, it sounds like it's all of the things that we take for granted that we need to do on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. I mean, getting out of bed is one of the biggest complaints, where it takes 2 seconds to just leap out of bed and be on with your day. One with Parkinson's, it might take 5 to 10 minutes or longer just to get out of the bed. And that becomes a burden on the caregiver because they have to help, but then also on the patient themselves just feels kind of sad that this is how I'm moving and I still am with it enough. I want to get up, but my body's not letting me.
Yeah, that's a hard way to start the day, just to feel kind of trapped in the bed or dependent on someone else.
Right. Exactly. It is. It's sad, but that's kind of where it tugged at my heartstrings a little bit that there are ways to improve those mobility issues and those mobility dysfunctions.
So, could you give us an example of how you would help someone improve getting out of bed?
Yeah, so everyone is very individualized, but I always recommend stretching in bed before you get up if you can. Now, I know a lot of people have to go to the bathroom as soon as they wake up. It's hard to stretch in bed when your bladder is screaming at you. So I always, if you can move quicker or bend your knees and just kind of roll out with some speed, usually that helps. The thing with Parkinson's is that you feel like you're moving normal, but you're not. You feel like you're moving fast enough, but you're not. So your kind of perception of how your body is moving is skewed. So where you feel like, oh, I'm trying as fast as I can and it feels okay, it's actually slower than what it should be. So you really want to go at like a level 10 as much as you can to make it feel like a normal, which would be like a 5, let's say. So I always tell them to just go as quick as you can, roll onto your side and basically just roll out, like if you have to go really quickly. Also, if we're talking adaptive equipment, bed rails that go under the mattress you can buy, and those help people a lot to just help pull them up as adaptive equipment.
Okay, so you can do a little bit to kind of hack the brain with how things feel different in Parkinson's disease to help get up, as well as adding some props or equipment to make it easier too.
Exactly.
So, as you were practicing as an occupational therapist and watching what was happening with your own family members, what did you notice were some of the gaps in care where people weren't getting better despite your best efforts?
Yeah, so a lot of people who came in with the mobility concerns, balance, and things like that, I would ask questions about how they're sleeping or what else is a concern. And a lot of them said, I have no energy. I'm always tired. So we kind of dug into what are you eating? How are you sleeping? And everything else in your day to day life. What do you do all day? Are you someone who's a busybody? Do you just kind of sit in your recliner all day? What are your demands? What are your roles in your life? Okay. So are you the caretaker of your husband or wife? Are there's so many variables. So I was asked all these questions and I found myself time ticking where I'm asking these questions and time goes by and I'm like, oh my gosh, our session is almost over, but we didn't address your concerns of quote movement and balance, which is what we needed to do for the insurance and yada yada. So that's where I found the gap where I was like, there's all these other things that are affecting your ability to move better and they're not being addressed. How can I have you move better if you slept for 3 hours last night? How can I expect you to have the energy to get through in an hour session if you didn't eat breakfast? So that's where I found the gap in the medical model is it's so objective. You need to hit these measurements, these benchmarks. And if you don't, see you later. And so that's where I had the concern. And I found over the time of working with people with Parkinson's that's where people needed almost more help to receive and get the greatest success. To maximize the outcomes, we needed to address all the other pieces of the puzzle rather than just help me move better.
Yeah, so much great stuff in there about how addressing the really foundational components of life of eating, sleeping, having an appropriate stress level really have to be taken into account before you can expect improvements in some of these other areas.
And I think that goes for everyone too. You and I, if we didn't sleep good last night, we had a restless night of sleep, our day the next day is probably not going to be as productive as if we got a nice night's rest. And I think that just applies across the board too. If you don't eat a well balanced breakfast, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure for the rest of the day. And we really need to be more aware and more in tune. And that's where I developed what I did, is to just help educate and guide and help these people who maybe aren't really realizing that these are as big of an issue as they are.
Absolutely. And I know just for myself, when I don't sleep well, especially multiple nights in a row, the first things that go for me are my speech. I start having word finding issues and not articulating well, and my coordination and my balance. And those are all things we think about in neurological conditions. And, even those of us who don't have a diagnosis get impacted in those areas with sleep.
For sure. You're always like a little off, maybe you bump into the wall or
Yeah.
you feel
Yeah.
like your balance isn't good. And you're like, what the heck is happening? But you didn't sleep good, or maybe hydration is huge. Maybe I didn't drink enough water. I need to drink more water. So us as, healthcare professionals know that and are in tune to that. So we can identify these factors where others, who don't have the medical background or don't, haven't grown up like you and I in this world where wellness and holistic medicine and stuff like that is more aware, people are more aware of it. I think we just need to educate them on, identifying these factors that could be contributing to the main concern they have.
Yeah, it's so important. I think raising the awareness is really the first step to it, just to know, like you said, that things aren't always random. Why am I having a bad day? To start probing a little further of, have I had any water today, or have I only been drinking coffee or diet soda, which is something I hear a lot from patients. Did I sleep at all in the past week? Things like that.
Exactly. And that's exactly the model I'm portraying with this venture, this business model that I have now.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about this business model? Like, how would someone come to work with you, and what's your process from the first visit moving onward?
So it's very similar, I guess, to it's a similar process with the medical model. So it's the health coaching, and then also there is therapy for people, because I do believe therapy is necessary, occupational and physical and speech therapy. I think they all have their place. The health coaching and mobility coaching um, is completely a wellness model. So it is starts with an initial evaluation, very similar to what you would have when you go to a therapist. So we sit down, we talk about all your concerns, we talk about everything. What is your day-to-day activities? What time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed? What's your diet like? What's this? Like, how much do you weigh? What's your height? All the things. So it's a completely interview process. And from there, we kind of determine, what's your biggest concern? How can we help you get there? And how can we do it together where it's sustainable? So, where a therapy setting might say, okay, do these exercises at home, here you go, come back next week. Did you do them? No, I didn't. Okay, well, that happens 9 times out of 10.
Yes, it does.
And so that's where I question, why are we not doing them? I'm not going to hold your hand, but I'm also going to see where in your brain is saying, I don't want to do that. So, how can we make it so easy that you can just implement it into your day-to-day life? How can we make it a habit? How can we habit stack it on something you're already doing? How can we, do the stretches while you're brushing your teeth? How can we do the stretches while you're waiting for your cup of coffee? So I look at all those components rather than just giving you the exercise program to reach those goals that you want to reach. I think And I know Parkinson's is an ongoing, it lasts forever. So I think, and people's bodies are always changing. So I think goals and I think environment has a lot to do with it, whether you're living at home, in an apartment, wherever you are with family, by yourself. So the wellness model is to more in the coaching, more to just help you find the motivation and help that person find how we can make all of this sustainable and how we can keep it so that you do this forever rather than just saying, I don't want to do this exercise program or I don't feel like it. So that's where I found more success, is that making things simple, things that people like to do. And so that's why the interview process and the evaluation is so, it's an hour, but it's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I love this approach. There are a few things I want to highlight. Just an hour with a healthcare provider is amazing with how fast paced most of medicine is these days. To have someone with you for that amount of time and really listening to you and learning about you, I think is really precious. And I love that you're focused on sustainability. That's something, in my work as a physical therapist, I've loved working with Parkinson's. It's really fun to see how rapidly exercise can change someone's complete presentation with how they're moving around. But then what was frustrating was we would make so many gains over, maybe the 2 months we did therapy. And then 6 months later, I'd see the person coming back in again, almost from square one. So seeing that things really hadn't sustained after discharge from that structured physical therapy. So I love that you take that head on and make integration of the exercises paramount to your program.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was the frustration with me, is a lot of it was education. So a lot of the people that I saw with Parkinson's would often say, I want to get stronger so I can move better. And most of the time a lot of the times these people were very strong. It wasn't a strength issue. It wasn't like, let's get stronger and I'm going to build my muscle and I'm going to be better and everything's going to be great and we're all just going to run off in the sunset. Unfortunately, it is a progressive, you're basically playing tug of war with your body. So it's something that you always need to be working on. And I think that it's hard for people to, I think, come to terms with that. It's kind of like, it sounds like, oh, I could get as strong as I want and I'm not going to get better. And that's pretty discouraging. However, on the flip side is that you have complete control over your body. And the more you move and the more you are aware, you can control those movements and you can continue to live the life and the mobility that you want. But it's tough work. But I mean, that was where I was like, you can't just get stronger, stop, and then we're going to be okay. Like, unfortunately, this is something we need to do forever. And that can be scary. And that's why I developed with the wellness model, because and making things so easy and sustainable, because these need to be forever. You can't just do X, Y, and Z exercise and be cured, unfortunately. So keeping them sustainable, keeping them simple is how I have found that people with Parkinson's have had the greatest success.
Yeah, it's like, that's just what life is now. It's like, you put on your clothes every day, you do your exercises every day.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Especially in our Western culture, there's a real drive for a cure or a quick fix, or even if it's a really big thing, people would rather do it one time and know they don't have to do it again. Like, we see a lot of people preferring to do surgery for certain conditions over therapy, but that just doesn't exist in Parkinson's right now. And so I think the value of your process is you're helping people over the long term come to terms with this and find some healing along the way, even if there isn't a cure for their condition.
Yeah, and I think that's just human behavior. We all want the quick fix. We all want a simple way out. We want the path of least resistance. That's just the way we're all wired. We don't like to do things the hard way. So again, that goes back to simple and sustainable, movements and things like that. And also, simply changing or eating breakfast, for example, is instead of eating a muffin, let's pick something a little bit more nutritional that you still like. And that could make a huge difference. That's not revamping your life. That's not reinventing the wheel. That's just making a smarter decision to set you up for success. Where it's like, oh, quick fix, let's just do this surgery and that. How about a quick fix of swapping out, your muffin for a yogurt? So it's simple little things a lot of people I don't think realize. And it goes back to the education factor.
Absolutely. Can you give us an example of a patient you've worked with where these simple switches have really made big differences in what that process looked like?
I can think of one example just right off the top of my head. This particular person likes to exercise and they like to move and they're just scared to death of getting worse, is what they say. So they are exercise fanatics, 5 days a week, the Pilates, the fitness trainer, they do the stair, they are hardcore with movement. Okay. We're talking diet. Okay. So this person was eating X, Y, and Z forever. And now you're exercising 5 times a week at a pretty vigorous level and still eating the same of what you were eating before you were exercising so vigorously. So your calorie in is the same as the calorie in, but now you're increasing your level of activity like a lot. So we kind of discussed how the process works when you exercise and how you need to replenish your muscles and all of that. So we talked about different protein drinks to drink after exercise and how increasing your meals, maybe a snack during the day rather than just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Eat a healthy snack, whether it be nuts or some cheese if they're dairy. It's kind of that's what she does. And she started because weight gain is a concern for her. She doesn't want to lose any more weight. And so again, I said, we need to significantly increase your calorie intake because of how much you're exercising. So that was a big, big part of our session. That lasted multiple sessions. So we got the protein drinks and we actually got a weight gaining protein powder, and she makes milkshakes. So that's going to add a ton of protein to her diet, which is huge. And we also work on timing with the medication because one thing with Parkinson's is the timing of meals with the medication, with the carbidopa, levodopa. You want to make sure that you're timing the meals appropriately just to maximize the nutritional value. So we work with that and kind of time those. So that process alone has taken multiple sessions. Do you think Medicare is going to pay for that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I sat there and we just talked about what, doubtful, how can I objectify that? So that has been amazing for her because we have really increased her calorie intake and we've prevented her from losing weight. Her neurologist said, do not lose any more weight. We have really worked together and she feels better. She has more energy. She actually feels like she can stand taller because her back's not getting so tired just because her muscles are just staying strong for a longer period of time. And she's not losing that muscle energy, that fatigue, that muscle endurance so fast. So that is one subset of what we've worked on with this whole wellness, holistic model. That's not something I had the time to do when I was, treating someone in a clinic who wanted to improve their mobility. But this completely goes hand in hand with improving the energy levels, which in turn help with the mobility levels. So, she was someone who froze a lot, who freezing of gait was a big concern. And that has significantly decreased since we've revamped kind of when she's eating and how much she's eating.
Well, that is such a great story to share. And I think it really highlights that when we meet our patients or clients where they are with what's important to them at the time, how so much can start to fall into place, as a result of it. She probably wasn't thinking that, not losing weight was going to impact her freezing of gait, for example. But it just goes to show that when you do these really foundational aspects of health, so many other things can improve in the process.
Right. And keeping things, again, simple and sustainable. We talked, and she's someone who doesn't like to pull out the blender and pull out the fruit and pull out the milk and pull out the yogurt and make the milkshake. She's like, I'm not going to do that. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you to do something you don't want to do. So she found it easier for her to just buy the already made protein drinks in, those little containers. And she just uses those, and that's fine. Is it better that she makes a milkshake? I don't know, maybe, but she's not going to do it. So why would I have her do something she doesn't want to do? I'd rather her have the drink out of the, just flip the top open and drink it than have to make one. And even we've talked about energy pre-workout drinks too. And she's like, I'm not going to take the powder and mix it in the water. That's too much. And I'm like, fine. So buy those pre-made as well in a can, not like there's certain ones that are better than others, of course. And so I just make recommendations based on, my own research on what has good, like the ingredients and things like that. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's coming to them, meeting them where they are and understanding that, having them weigh their food and make the protein drinks with all the things is not really something that everyone wants to do. And if you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. So that was exactly what we worked on. What works for her? What can we make sustainable? Because it's better than not doing anything.
Yeah, this is just such a practical way of doing health transformations, because I think we get hung up on what's the best way to do things, but it doesn't matter if we never do it. Something that's a little bit better than what we're doing now that we'll actually do can really go a long way.
Exactly. That was exactly the whole thing I want to portray with health and wellness is you don't have to break out the scale. You don't have to break out, you don't have to go to the store and buy something you can't even pronounce. So it's really just keeping it simple, trying to meet them halfway and figure something that'll work and that's sustainable and that can last for the long term. And I mean, we're going on with this like months. Like this was a conversation with the diet we had like months and months and months ago, and she's still doing it. So clearly it's sticking, it's sustainable, and it's working for her.
That is just such a great outcome. And it's these things that we know, as health coaches are true, but it's still so fun to see it work in real life too.
And everyone's different and everyone has their own approach with health coaching. I mean, I just treat people the way I would want to be treated. I don't like to pull out all the things and buy the stuff that I don't know that I'm going to use once and throw it away. So I kind of transfer, I guess, that into my health and wellness coaching, therapy, business, just because that's the person I am.
Yeah. And I think that makes it so approachable too. It's not so scary to reach out to someone like you who practices in this way.
And there's always a plan B, C, D. There's always another way. It's not black and white. It's not, hey, you have to do it this way or you're out of luck, too bad. There's always a way we can change things, modify. There's always a way to adapt. And I guess that's the OT in me is adapting and, compensating and all that stuff too. So there's always another way. There's always another plan if plan A doesn't work.
Absolutely. So Nicole, how does someone work with you? I know for the occupational therapy, they would have to probably be with you in person, but for some of this coaching, can that be done remotely?
Right. So the therapy is local only. So I'm in South Florida. So the therapy process is the therapy process, the doctor script and all that. But the health coaching is where I see the most success. So the health and mobility coaching, you can find me, send me an email at Nicole@optimaldailyLiving.com. And then my website, you can head there, optimaldailyLiving.com. And send me an email, and I would love to talk to anyone who's interested in this. It's virtual. There's different packages. So I offer the first 45-minute session right now is complimentary, so I can get to talk to you and understand you and see if we would be a good fit. So so you don't have to come out of pocket initially at all. It's a free 45-minute session to discuss the goals and where you want to be and kind of where you are and if we can get you there and all the things.
Yeah, great. I would encourage you all, if you are resonating with what Nicole's saying, if you have Parkinson's disease, to just go ahead and schedule that session. I think you'd find it to be well worth your time.
And absolutely, I want to highlight too, it's not just I will give you tangible strategies you can implement right away, just to show that, this works. Just looking at you from a holistic lens, it works. And it's not reinventing the wheel. And it works, just little things you can do and just change, but not huge, just little easy things can make a huge difference. And that's what's achieved in the 45-minute session.
Wonderful. Do you have any parting words of advice for us or words of wisdom?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say words of wisdom, if I'm talking to anyone with Parkinson's, movement disorders, chronic conditions, or their caregivers, I would say is to find someone who can help you, who can be accountable, can kind of be your advocate and be by your side. It's not a dead end road. There are other options. You can continue to be the best version of yourself, even though you have this chronic disease. It is not the end. And there's plenty of people out here to help you and want you to continue to live your life and improve your quality of life.
Oh, such a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Nicole, for your time today.
Yes, you're welcome. And thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
This podcast is provided for informational purposes only and does not create a provider-patient relationship between us. If you have questions about your health, please speak to a qualified health professional. If you would like to learn more about working with me as your qualified health professional, please visit CarolineMorris.com. Did you know that gratitude is good for your health? If you found value in this episode, please share it with a friend and leave a rating or review. To keep the connection going, subscribe to Elder Health Connection on your favorite podcast player to get immediate access to upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening. With love and gratitude, Caroline.